So you might have guessed, as someone that runs a startup that's trying to bring free business education to the world, I have a really big, strong passion to basically help people build a better life for themselves. That when I grew up, I was raised by a single parent, so my mum raised my brother and I, put us through university, and actually I worked really fucking hard to get to this point and build something. But actually going through that career and that whole kind of path, I had to learn it all from scratch, to read like literally probably 200, 300 books and piece it all together, but then actually match that academic kind of learning with real world practical experience to kind of see what works and what doesn't. And when I first went to university, so I did mechanical engineering at University of Sheffield. I started in 2002. And what was really fascinating for me, but it was also, I say great life experience, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it, which is a really funny one, is that for me, I grew up in Liverpool and I moved to a very good, prestigious university, but you're suddenly thrown into a pool with lots of other people, all from different backgrounds. And it's interesting that you discover stuff that you didn't even know was a thing. And one of the ones that really kind of got me was that we weren't poor in the global sense, but actually in the UK sense, single parent family going away to go to university is expensive. That I was always conscious of money. And when you start to meet people that have a different background to you, there's no disrespect or anything to them. It's a different environment and they're in a different position to what you are. But you do see things and you do experience life in a different way. And actually yesterday in the car on the way back from lunch, there was an article on BBC Radio 1, and it was actually to do with inequality in education. And this is specifically for higher education now. And actually it's the difference in rich versus poor. So don't get me wrong, I love education in all forms: school, higher education, personal development, learning, everything. I love it. I love universities. I love schools. I love most private education providers. Some of them I don't like. But the point is, I'm not anti-education. I love education. What I hate is barriers to education which hold back and exclude people, certain people, but then it's not a deal for others. So for instance, for me, I genuinely believe that people should be ranked solely on talent and hard work. I hate the fact that if you come from privilege, you have inherent advantages over people that don't, because that is a system that perpetuates itself. So again, if you come from privilege, you have more money, more background, more resources, more of a network. And actually, if you come from more of a regular background, you have to overcome so much more. And it's something I wanted to talk about. They mentioned it yesterday on the article, and it was just something that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to go, actually go, so I'm going to go through certain different topics and just really kind of talk you through it. So the first one, you go to do education to learn. So if you go to university, so again, when I did engineering, we kind of had lectures 9 till 5 every day, except Wednesdays, where you go in, you get good value, to be honest, where you actually would go get taught face to face. Then you would have some different practicals. You might have a lab for a few hours where you learn the practical elements of different things. But it was in big buildings with big expensive stuff, and you really kind of get involved. But the point is, it took a lot of time. So it genuinely was, arguably, well, it was a full-time kind of job. My wife, for instance, did law, or if you do an arts degree, often the hours aren't quite as long, but it's really then dependent on self-study and self-learning. So it's a different thing. So it's not uncommon that some courses might only be taught 10 to 15 kind of hours a week. But the issue is where you come for the device between rich and poor people is that if you basically are rich and privileged, you have time because you don't have to go and work a job to pay for your bills, that actually you inherently have more time to study. Does that make sense? So actually, if you're rich, you have more time to study. If you're poor, you have less. So for instance, if you work in Pizza Hut 10 hours a week, so what's it now? So it's now about £9 an hour. After tax, you give up 10 hours of your week for arguably 50, 60 pounds. But that 10 hours over a 24-week term is what? 240 hours. That's a hell of a lot of study that you are disadvantaged against people that don't have to work a part-time job, that actually you're inherently going to get better grades, like for like with skill and talent and whichever, because you come from privilege and you don't have to work. So it artificially hurts and damages poorer or regular people that need to work and pay for their studies. And actually what you then get with that, basically there's added pressure. So not only do you have to have the same pressures and worries about passing exams, regardless of where you come from, you then have to worry about how you're going to fit in your shift, how you're going to worry about work. And all of that extra pressure will have an adverse impact on your mental health that actually, you've got to ask, is that kind of fair? Is that it's not a level playing field, and especially when it comes to education, that kind of really matters. Next. The same is true for job applications. So if you have more time because you don't have to work in a pub for 10 hours a week to pay your bills, or a supermarket, or whatever the job is, you have more time to do your research, to find companies, to apply to them, write really well written application letters and do all the good stuff. That basically a poorer person that has to work just doesn't have that. And again, the more job applications that you can apply for, the better your applications can be in terms of how you word them and write them and do your research. It's going to give you an advantage to get the better jobs. Again, people that get better jobs probably get paid more, and it perpetuates this cycle that, again, for me, the higher education system does discriminate against regular people that have to work for a living to pay for their fees. And I hate it. I really kind of hate it. And bear in mind, when I went, so the course fees were about £1,500 per year. It went up to 3.5. But now, about 10 years ago, it went to £9,000 per year. And I've got friends that graduated with like £60,000 worth of debt because they borrowed the money to go and do their education. But now that's £60,000 worth of debt, which is going to impact their ability to get a mortgage. There's going to be pressure involved to do it paying it off or not paying it off. And the options that they have are completely different versus other people that maybe come from a more privileged background, didn't have to borrow the money in the first place. And I just hate the inequality also in terms of just the platform that people get to build a better life for themselves on isn't fair. And it's part of the reason why, again, with the roadmap, why we're genuinely looking to kind of make it free, that if, regardless of where you are in the world, I think, I personally believe that you should be able to get access to all the information to help you build that better life without the barriers that otherwise are put in place. And then last but not least, and this is a really big one, it's to do with your network. So the more time you have and the more time to go and speak to people and socialize and whichever, it's going to give you more introductions to more people that could potentially offer you jobs, versus if you don't get to go to those things because you have to work to pay your bills to stay in the same place. But then likewise, advantage, disadvantage, chances are if you come from a more privileged or middle class kind of background and you want to become an engineer, it might be that you within your family know other engineers, or you know other people, or your friend works at a company or whatever. But it's that nepotism, it's asking for introductions, favors, work experience, etc. artificially helps people that have those networks and connections. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that basically, although there shouldn't be, there is inequality in the education system, that the way that it's set up artificially punishes regular and poorer people versus others, that just perpetuates the same problem. As actually, if everyone had free access to education, it would reduce the burden of the pressure to work and pay your bills, that actually you would have a more level playing field, and hopefully more people and more better people would get the better jobs. So I hope that kind of makes sense. It was a topic that I feel massively kind of passionate about. It was on the radio yesterday, and it's a real thing. So one of the things that I just wanted to talk about with the platform that I have is just kind of mention this as well. If you catch this on YouTube or any of the other social channels, please kind of like and subscribe. My name's Steve Pugh. We do a lot of business and entrepreneurship type stuff. And then also, if you're interested, get in touch to guest list at roadmapmba.com, and I'll send you a free copy of the course as well. And that's anywhere in the world. What we're looking to do is basically help people build a better life for themselves with an accessible platform to really help communities thrive and grow together.